Welcome back to the BTS Happy Hour podcast. I'm your host, Andrea. With me today is Morgan.
Hey, what's up?
BTS has now released their Dynamite promotion schedule on August 4th, and this is a lot more than I thought was going to happen. Like, I thought this song would just come out on the day, and it's like, okay, this song is out now, everybody. But it seems to be a full schedule similar to when an album is released, because there's going to be a video and multiple interviews and even a comeback like V Live and a YouTube live thing. And they're also going to be on the MTV Video Music Awards, which I wasn't expecting them to even pay any attention to or go to or anything.
Are they going to perform on it? Yeah, they're going to perform on it, obviously.
Yeah, it looks like the last item on this schedule is that they're performing there.
And that's good. I mean, that's winning the VMAs. Because when people watch the VMAs on YouTube, are people really that interested in who won?
That's true.
No, they're looking at performances, and whoever has the best performance is the winner.
That is a good point.
Yeah. And they're going to have the best performance. I think we all know that.
I wonder if it was more that they decided MTV was an important part of this U.S. English single, or if MTV was like, hey, yeah, BTS, we really need you to show up.
I guess maybe a little bit of both, right? I mean, MTV is an important part of the American music industry.
Yeah. Even though it's like, we think they're kind of irrelevant. But if you're doing a whole U.S. push, that's a piece of it. You got to be on MTV and at least enough to make this performance and then something that people can watch and maybe go viral. So that's good.
And it seems kind of irrelevant for people like us because we're so plugged into YouTube and things like that. But for a large segment of the population, MTV still moves the needle. They are music. They're synonymous with music. So having the best performance on the VMAs, that's a big deal.
And I had thought when we were talking about the nominations, VMA nominations last episode, I was thinking this show was going to be like months ahead, not this same month. Mm-hmm. I was like, okay, it's that time already. Mm-hmm. So it kind of sucks that we're still doing quarantine type of performances where everything's remote still.
Oh, their show will be remote?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's okay. I mean, like we've noted before, some people really take a hit as far as when it's remote, it really lacks something, spectacle, quality. But it does seem that K-pop acts, I don't know if they're used to it or something, or maybe their performances are just inherently better. It seems to be fine, even from remote, with no audience. So I'm sure that BTS will come off really well. I'm sure they'll have the best performance for this awards show, and it'll capture more eyes. And the song's all in English. It's going to be a new video, a big push. I can't think of it. Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
I think the only thing we'll miss out on is like, who are they sitting near at the awards show, and like who interacts with them and who.
Oh yeah, no one cares about that. Does anyone really care? Well, I think that's more of a big deal in Korea.
That's true.
People are always looking for any kind of sign that somebody is dating somebody else. I don't think that in American award shows people care that much about this dynamic. They don't look at the crowd that much. So it'll be fine. And it's great that they're going to be featured as a performance.
And MTV announced them as the first artist that is going to be performing. So it's like they were really excited that, BTS is going to be there.
Well, they're not dumb. They can see numbers.
Yeah.
They know that this is a big deal. It's going to draw a lot of eyes. They know that at this point.
It's like finally some people at MTV or in America or their interns are like, hey guys, BTS is a big thing and we should make a big deal about it.
I'm pretty sure it's well past the interns at this point. I mean, the executives at MTV would have to be pretty insulated and dumb if they haven't at this point caught on that BTS is a big deal. And I don't think they're hyper insulated and dumb. I would just say, yeah, they're definitely aware. They definitely said, hey, let's get BTS in here. That's going to be great for our show. And coincided with an American release or an all-English release, works great.
And they're also going to be doing some interviews. So they're doing MTV Fresh Out Live. I don't even know what show that is, but I guess it's some kind of
Well, now we will. Now people will be watching that show.
Some interview show that they
Mission accomplished. See?
And they're going to be doing the Today Show to promote.
Okay.
So that's good. We'll see something new from them this month already. One thing I was thinking about was, do other artists need to start avoiding BTS release dates? There isn't really other things that I've heard of major that are coming out other than Dua Lipa's remix album. of her album that's already out.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the fact that it's a remix, maybe it's not a huge thing. But some people were joking online. It's like, oh well, is her company trying to sabotage her? I mean, obviously they're not. But
No.
it's like, why would she want to release on the same day as BTS? And I mean, I guess they don't think it's the same audience or anything. Her company.
It is the same audience, I think, but I don't think it matters. Like we've talked about this before. It's not like movies. You're not committed to watching one movie in a weekend. So releasing on the same weekend, I just don't think it's a big deal. You can, if there's 5 good releases on that weekend, you can totally listen to all of them, right? But if there's 5 awesome movies you wanted to see, you're probably going to pick one.
That's true.
You're not going to watch 5 movies in a weekend. And then 5 weekends from now, it's going to seem old and you've moved on to whatever's being released that current weekend. So I don't think it's comparable at all to movie releases. I don't think it's a big deal. Now, does it mean it's totally irrelevant? No, I don't think so. There are some things that you do lose, you can't get crowded out of as far as media exposure.
Yeah, I think sometimes like all of the attention might be on the biggest artist that day.
So if you feel like you might get crowded out of media exposure, yeah, you might want to move it. But in my view, there's plenty of media exposure for, 2 or 3 big artists to release something close to each other. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
If you're a little worried about that, maybe just move it a few weeks. Is it a big deal? No, I don't think it's that big of a deal, so you may want to just do it. But it's certainly not as dire as movies. Really good, potentially successful movies have been tanked by releasing on the wrong weekend. That has happened. I don't want to dredge up a specific example at this point, but just trust me, that has happened where a movie that was A, good, and B, theoretically should have been financially successful, it just released on the wrong weekend. That has happened, but I don't think that that would ever happen to a song. Because if a song is good and from a popular artist and it has a fan base, you're going to listen to that song. Maybe you'll warm up to it a little slower, but you're going to listen to that song, watch the video. It's not the same way with movies. People tend to want to watch it, in the first week or two. Yeah. And after that, they sort of forget about it.
You'll watch one movie that weekend.
Right. That's not the way it is with songs. People will catch up to it later and just love it just as much. And
well, it does seem like the A-list artists, they kind of avoid each other. Like, they're not going to release on the same day if it's avoidable. Like, I don't know if that's out of respect or if that's out of like, oh, we don't want to compete with that other person.
I think it's because there are certain things that you do lose. The pie is only so big as far as media exposure, right? And they don't want to share that on their weekend.
Yeah.
But it's not a death sentence or anything. It's just, there were a lot of other big artists releasing this date.
Like, you wouldn't see Taylor Swift and Beyonce on the same day release. Like, they wouldn't do
but
that.
Even if they did, I don't think that at the end of the day they would be hurt that much. It just might take a little more time to ramp up to their eventual level of success, as opposed to having the big, exciting opening that they both expected. I don't think that people should be threatened, and I don't think they should go out of their way to change their dates. But ideally, you don't want to crowd the same date. But like you said, there's only so many bookings on the Today Show. There's only so many bookings on the Tonight Show. If you are all releasing in the same window, that kind of stuff will get crowded out.
Yeah.
That's all. That's the only thing you have to worry about.
And I noticed that, remember we were talking about Blackpink said they're going to have their single come out in August. And we were like, oh, what if it's on the same day as Dynamite? And now they've said the date of it. They said it's coming out August 28th. So does it seem to you like they were purposely avoiding BTS, or that's the date that they were going to have and that's it?
Well, they might have been purple. I don't want to start mind reading or anything, but they might have been, yeah.
I think K-pop groups would avoid BTS.
Yeah. Right. K-pop groups have a little bit more incentive to schedule around other people because they have their music show stuff.
That's true.
So whether you win music shows, I don't know how much they care about it necessarily anymore, but whether you win music shows, that definitely has a lot to do with when your stuff comes out. If your stuff comes out next to a heavy hitter, then you won't win any music shows. American artists, of course, they have no music shows, so this is not a big deal.
Yeah. And I noticed, I was trying to look at what else was on August 28th. I was like, maybe they did that for a reason. And I saw the Katy Perry's album comes out August 28th, but maybe they aren't that worried about like the American artists releasing that day. They're just looking at, okay, what other K-pop is that day, I think is what maybe they...
I don't think they have that much overlap as far as fandoms. That's my guess. Mm-hmm. It's hard to admit that because I am a Katy Perry fan, but At this point, Katy Perry is quite an old artist. I don't think she has a lot of overlap with K-pop fans.
Yeah.
You know, I think K-pop fans tend to skew a little bit younger, and at this point, Katy Perry fans tend to skew a little bit older.
Yeah, like I'm not sure if this Katy Perry album is going to be that big, like past albums have been.
Right. So there's no need for her to be that overly concerned about overlapping with Blackpink, correct? Mm-hmm. They don't have the same audience as my guess. No problem for her there.
You know what's funny is, you know how Taylor Swift had her surprise album drop on whatever day that was. It was like early August, or end of July, I think, is when Folklore came out. She was purposely trying to release that when Kanye West's album was supposed to come out, but then he delayed it, so that kind of like...
Oh, so she was, he outmaneuvered her.
She was thwarted, or maybe he just like got behind and like, oh, I wasn't ready in time.
I'm almost certain that he was not trying to outmaneuver anybody. He was just being Kanye.
I think he was just not prepared yet.
Yeah. Oh, wait, there was an album I was supposed to release?
Well, I'm running for president now, so that's kind of like...
Yeah, he was probably occupied with running for president.
I forgot about that. He's like, I forgot about my album that's supposed to come out, and the shoes that I'm designing and all
and
this.
Making campaign speeches in some kind of army tactical vest or something. I don't know what he was wearing. Bulletproof vest. I mean, I'm a Kanye fan. I'm very interested in everything he does.
He's got a lot going on right now, so
it's
maybe
it's a lot sometimes though.
His album is just like, oh, I forgot about that.
Right. I'm sure that's what happened. He was not trying to one up Taylor Swift, and we're not sure that
she was trying to one up him. Maybe.
Are you sure about that?
Because hers was totally a surprise, and his, maybe it was like known by people, like when it was supposed to come out.
Well, but they don't have the same fan base at all either, right? She wouldn't be taking away from his shine or anything like that.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
But it could be viewed as this is one of her
Normally
moves.
I would say this is, there's no way somebody would be so petty to think that. But this is Taylor Swift we're talking about. And keep in mind, I like Taylor Swift. I think she makes great music. But she does act like a teenage girl. And what is she, like 29? 30?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I wouldn't put it past her. Maybe she did want to release it the same day as a Kanye album coming out. You know, come on. It's been wow, has it been 13 years since he interrupted on her on stage? 12 years?
Forget when that was like 2000.
At least 10 years.
2009 or something.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, that was...
Get over it.
This goes way back. But that was at an MTV award. So you see how like, sometimes that moment can be remembered.
Get over it is what I have to say, Taylor. Get over it. And also, when he did that, her star grew even bigger. She wasn't hurt by it. What are you upset about? Imagine in an alternate universe where Kanye West sat in his seat like a normal goddamn person, and then she just accepted an irrelevant MTV Music Award that people would forget in about a year. Would that be better for her? No.
That's true, because I don't remember anything else from that show. Like,
nobody remembers the winners.
Whatever else happened that year.
We remember Taylor Swift won something, and Beyonce didn't. But the only reason why we still remember that is entirely because of Kanye West. When that happened, everyone said, "Oh, why is Kanye West such a dick? Why is he being a jerk like this?" And poor Taylor Swift. You're putting this 19-year-old girl on the spot, and maybe people would listen to her music more and be exposed to it. And she did put out great music, so that only helps her. This situation did nothing but help her. So I can't imagine that she's still bitter about that. She shouldn't be.
Yeah, I mean, in the long run, it did benefit her. But then there was all these other issues that she had with them.
On the spot, I'm sure it didn't feel good.
She's still mad about other things, like the whole...
the whole video.
The song.
And then Kim Kardashian releasing her videotape conversation.
Yeah, and then recently they released like the full versions, and it was like, it was edited to make Kim and Kanye look better. It's like, okay.
Right. But it's too late.
Yeah, this was like well after the fact.
Right.
So
it's well after the fact. And then Taylor Swift had to make a whole Snake album or whatever.
Well, at least we got a good album out of it.
She should, again, thank them. Because that was one of her better albums. It was probably my favorite album, Reputation, right? Mm-hmm. Like other people like her other albums because they like, I like the quasi-country Taylor that just writes sweet music. But I like the angry one that's really resentful of Kim Kardashian. Mm-hmm. So I like Reputation. I like that juice in there. I like that anger component. Kim Kardashian's like her muse. She should appreciate that.
It's like there's different Taylor Swift fans. Like some people like earlier country Taylor, and some people like Reputation, like hardcore Taylor, and other people like 1989 pop music Taylor. And then
I like 1989.
Now there's folk music.
I guess
Taylor.
1989 is actually my favorite, but I also like Reputation, and I don't like the country because I don't like country.
Yeah, 1989 was my favorite, but now I don't know. Folklore is right up there.
Yeah, I didn't even really
pretty
listen
good
to
album.
it. That probably harkens back to her earlier stuff, huh?
Yeah.
Anyway,
But it's just like if you're a BTS fan, there's some people that really prefer the earlier albums, and then some people like, well, I like all the new music, and it's like, oh, maybe you're looked
like the new
down on
music.
because like, oh, you're a newbie army. But yeah, they have different eras too. It's like same thing.
all in all, they probably helped her career.
I
She
wish
should be happy.
we could find out that this was all like a plan by them, but I think
No.
they actually do dislike each other.
They actually do dislike. Do you think that Kanye West has a 10-year plan going forward to help Taylor Swift's career? And he just predicted, it's like, I'll do this and then you'll get bigger. And then I'll do that and then you'll get bigger. But it'll also, help me too. Like, he's not a mad genius or anything. He's just mad.
Yeah,
Which I still love him, but he's not a mad genius.
he just does impulsive things.
Yes. And a lot of times, to his credit, those things work out spectacularly. But they are just impulsive madness on his part. But sometimes that's how artists and, art is created.
This week, there's been some bombings in Beirut, Lebanon. I don't know if we're all paying attention to like world news or what's going on with that.
Was it a bombing? My understanding is it's not.
I don't know. I'm not sure exactly. Like, was it intentional?
My understanding,
or
they stored a bunch of explosives stupidly. And
was
then,
it? Oh, was it an accidental thing?
that's my understanding.
Oh, okay. I didn't follow up
Yeah.
if they found out if it was like terrorists or if it was just like gas
Yeah, it's
line
not
or
clear,
something.
but I think at the moment they think it was an accident.
Okay.
They think they stored, explosives.
Okay. So wherever they
Yeah.
were being stored, something set them off accidentally.
Yeah,
What you're saying?
and they stored a really abnormal amount of it
All in one spot.
in a densely populated area for some dumb reason. I'm not saying it's not a bombing. I don't know what happened, okay? But from what I understand, it was maybe accidental, just negligence.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
no one's actually come out and said, here's what happened, everybody. It's just like, hey, why did that explode? Why is this building like...
Yeah. So I think probably right now people think it was just negligence. Yeah.
Okay. Well, in relation to that, a lot of the Twitter army, because BTS's song is named Dynamite, they're trying to be really sensitive to this situation.
Oh,
and
was that true? I didn't see any of this.
yeah, I saw a lot of tweets about
I don't
this.
really pay attention to Twitter Army, but okay.
And there's like some hashtags going on, and so I clicked on them, and basically they're trying to advise people like, hey, can you please not use the dynamite emoji or the explosion emoji in your display name, in case that triggers people who live in Lebanon. And
Right.
I noticed a lot of people had added that because of Dynamite, so they were trying to like support BTS comeback.
So a lot of people did add it, but how many people were saying, no, don't add it because it's insensitive? How many people you think?
I don't know. A lot of people were telling other people to take it out, or at least take
were
it
those
out
people
for the
listening,
time being.
you think?
It's hard to say. I mean, I still saw it in places. And, I mean, I personally didn't stop using the
Also,
emojis.
Did you put the emoji in your?
Not in the display name, but I've used it like, when you're talking about the song, you just put that
Right.
at the end of your
The
sentence.
Dynamite.
you
Well,
know?
I think you know my opinion on this. I think it's dumb. Number one, the thing that exploded in Lebanon is not exactly dynamite.
It wasn't like sticks of dynamite.
No. So they're not even the same thing. Number two, the people who were affected and traumatized by this tragedy, they're not today and probably not for the next week or two. They're not heavily invested in looking at Twitter and news about BTS Dynamite song. They're not looking at that. They're taking care of stuff that victims of a tragedy need to take care of.
Yeah, I don't think they're monitoring. Who's
Right.
using this emoji? That's rude.
Right. They're not trolling through, oh, I really need to catch up on what's going on with BTS, and someone is using a dynamite emoji.
Like,
And then
how
they just started
dare
crying
you?
uncontrollably. If you could point to me one person who was affected by the tragedy and then was looking through Twitter and then saw somebody in BTS using a dynamite emoji and then they were emotionally affected and started crying or something, or they were triggered, then okay, then let's talk. But I'm almost sure that you cannot come up with a single person that fits this description. So when you're telling other people what to do, it's really for you to feel good, for you to feel like, look at how good of a person I am. Look at how sensitive I am to other people's needs.
Yeah, that's what it was.
That's if you're telling other people to stop using an emoji, you're way off base, because I don't think that emoji is really affecting anybody who's actually a victim of this tragedy. You just want to feel good about yourself. That is what I'm trying to say. You just want to feel like, look at me. Look how moral and upstanding I am. And now I'm going to tell other people to be moral and upstanding. I was recently listening to a comedian talk about this, and he was joking about how he always likes to joke about tragedies on the day that they happen. And then everyone's in shock or whatever. And they think, that's terrible. Why are you joking about tragedies on the day they happen? And he said, the people who are victimized by those tragedies are not on Twitter the day they happen.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're offended and you're triggered, you're not one of the victims.
Right.
You're a moral busybody on Twitter. All those people are dealing with victim shit, is what he was saying.
If I had seen even one person say, hey, that really offends me, like that would at least be something for that argument.
Right.
But I didn't see like a single person who's
Right.
like, hey, this is offensive and I'm from Lebanon and I don't want to see that.
Yeah.
Like
I
not
didn't
a single...
see a single person. I didn't see a single... I haven't. Now, in fairness, I don't read Twitter, Army Twitter a lot, so maybe I just didn't see it. But I would just have to imagine that people who are personally affected by something like that, they've got a lot bigger things on their plate at the moment. I think we can pretty much assume that to be true. They have much bigger concerns than whether or not BTS fans are using a Dynamite emoji to talk about a Dynamite song. You want to talk about this sort of thing to feel good about yourself, which is that's not evil or anything. This is something that people like to do. But just know that you're not helping quote-unquote victims of a tragedy avoid being triggered by something. You just want to feel good about yourself by signaling to people, hey, look at how concerned I am. You know, if you're that concerned, why don't you donate to the Red Cross or something? Mm-hmm. Throw them $100 or whatever you can afford. Throw them $100.
Direct help to them.
Right. I'm sure that probably the Red Cross or something, they helped out in a situation like that. So why don't you do something like that? Why don't you ask other people to, fundraise for Red Cross efforts or something like that? Because, wagging your finger at people using a Dynamite emoji, I've got to tell you, I'm not going to say it's impossible and it has not helped anybody. Perhaps there were a couple people who were affected by this event and they saw a Dynamite emoji and they felt triggered by it, and your efforts did help them out. In what way, though? So you help them out by just not being triggered by being on Twitter? Come on. How about you give blood? How about you do something that actually helps people?
I think even if you were a victim of the bombing and then you happened to be on Twitter and saw some, Dynamite emoji talk or this, like you would understand like, oh, BTS just has a song about that. It's not talking about us in any way. It's not like...
No, and if you've ever been affected by something major like this, I assure you that what happens is you're almost sort of numb to the other things that are happening in your life. You're not hypersensitive to the other things that are happening in your life. Have you ever had like a family member die or something? I mean, just think about, everybody's had some kind of tragedy or something really bad happen in their personal life. Did you go on Twitter and you just said, oh my God, that emoji really triggers me? No. Just try to think about it. You probably, if you were on Twitter or you're reading the internet, the other things, besides the really bad thing that just happened to you, they all just seem kind of irrelevant. You were numb to it.
Yeah, it like falls by the wayside. It's like
Right.
You're not even paying attention to this background stuff.
Yeah, you're probably thinking, wow, maybe 4 weeks ago I would have really cared about this particular thing, but today I just don't. Here's why. You are grappling with something tragic or really immense, and the other stuff, when you have this perspective, it just doesn't seem important at all. And I guarantee you that people who had to deal with loved ones dying in a gigantic explosion, they are not caring about what emojis people are using on Twitter, if they even bother to go on Twitter and see them. It just does not matter to them. So you're just virtue signaling if you're trying to...
It's like protect people.
Yeah, I'm protecting you. Well, thank you. Preventing what people post on emojis on Twitter? Serious? Just listen to yourself.
They're dealing with life and death things right now.
Yes, people actually died. I'm pretty sure they do not care what emojis are used on Twitter. I sincerely doubt they are on Twitter.
I don't even agree with like the overall concept of trigger warnings. Let me write a trigger before I write this about this other thing that might be like upsetting for people. Like,
Right.
I feel like
Well,
life is upsetting.
I mean, trigger warnings are okay with me. I do feel like, well, some people are triggered by certain things. So if you want to put a warning, that's fine. That's on you. But shaming people who just put a totally appropriate emoji that I think probably cause zero mental harm to actual real people on Earth, it's a waste of your energy. If you do care about the victims of this event, redirect your energy to productive things.
Mm-hmm.
You are not actually helping people by preventing emojis from being posted. I'm just going to be straight up. You are not. The story is so 2020.
Yeah, it's like
so 2020.
It's like an actual tragedy happened, but then a side effect is people are telling other people what to do in social media.
It's just a few people. Most people have more common sense than this. So if you want to use a dynamite emoji, go right ahead.
I do think there was just kind of a bandwagon because I did a search on like those words that day, and it was just like a bunch of people were saying kind of the same thing. It's like, oh, that's a good idea. Let me tweet that same thing too. Hey, everyone, don't use the dynamite emoji. It's just kind of like a bandwagon.
Right. It's sort of like it's like slacktivism. That's the term for it. Slacktivism, right? Somebody, I don't know where that came from, but it's a term somebody invented when people, they feel like, oh, I'm being an activist, I'm making change or whatever, and all they did was click like on something. Like, do you really think that clicking like on something is creating actual positive change? It's not. It gives people a second of a rush of saying, oh, I helped affect change.
Yeah.
Like, no, you
I
didn't.
did this.
Yeah, you didn't do anything. So you clicked like, that's all you did on a sentiment that seems nice. But was anybody actually helped by it? No. And did you examine whether someone was actually harmed by the original thing? So it's, yeah, I would say that slacktivism is a good way to describe this sort of thing. If you do want to help, there are charities that help people in need like this. I'm not even sure they were in need. It does seem like the infrastructure of the country handled it, right?
Yeah, this wasn't something where like, oh, the UN or all these other countries sent people there to help them.
It was one bad event, but the infrastructure of the country, they handled it as much as was needed. They had first responders on the scene, and okay, people died, but that's it. You can't help them at this point. You just have a situation that's unfortunate.
Yeah, and people from other countries, you're not always going to be able to do anything. So don't feel like I have to say something, I have to do something. They're dealing with it. So last episode, we discussed a blind item, which I believe it came from Jeff Benjamin, who was talking about there's going to be a K-pop group that releases an English version of one of their songs. And then we had theorized, or you had come up with, Red Velvet and Psycho would be a really good fit.
Did I theorize that or someone say it? No, I just theorized
people guessed it, but then that sounded good, right? It sounded like something that would work, and then like the dates lined up with like, oh, that's their anniversary, so that would make sense. But it turns out that Twice is going to release a more and more English version, so it's like, oh, okay, that was about Twice then.
Oh, is this confirmed then? It's confirmed.
They just had their online concert, and that was a surprise announcement, was that they're going to have this version of More and More come out. I don't know when, but
well, I'm excited because Twice is my favorite group. Although I do feel like Red Velvet Psycho was perfect for English-speaking markets. And I have some trepidation because Twice is not the best at English lyrics, I'll be honest with you. They do sound kind of off sometimes. But fortunately, the good thing is when people sing English lyrics, even if they're not a native English speaker, it generally comes off well. Mm-hmm. There's a difference between singing and speaking a foreign language, Yeah. I don't know why that is, but usually when you sing foreign language, it's okay, it's fine. It comes off pretty well. So I'm sure their English version will be fine. It'll be good. I am happy that it's Twice. I'm a little bit disappointed because I thought that Red Velvet Psycho would be perfect. It would hit harder in the Western markets. Yeah, and it would help them. Yeah, because they need to raise their profile a little more. Right, but I love for Twice to raise their profile as well. Yeah. More and more. Yeah, probably. It's not the most Western sounding song, but it's a pleasant song. I think it'll be successful. I'd have to hear it. I'm not sure that it's the best candidate, but it's the most recent release, so obviously it would just have to be that. I think I heard somewhere that the song came from Zara Larsson, so maybe the song originated in English.
Let me look that up just to make sure. Okay, according to Wikipedia, the lyricists are BB and JYP, but the composers are Zara Larsson, Julia Michaels, Justin Tranter, and Yuzoki Emaniki.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like there's some Americans or some Western people in the composer side of it.
Yeah.
But
well, we can only hope that it'll be successful. It would be nice to see other K-pop groups break into the West besides BTS and Blackpink, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I do have to admit that even though I like Twice, they're not even close to the same level.
They can do more in the Western market.
Right. And part of that is that a lot of their material from the beginning was cute concepts and things like that, and that doesn't play as well in the Western market. But they've transitioned away from that in recent releases, so
yeah,
it should work, or ideally it should be more apt to work. Hopefully it does for them. And then maybe people can catch on to their earlier stuff, you know? Because I do still think their earlier stuff is better, but that's just maybe a personal preference.
I do think they made the right move in hindsight with how their styling and everything was for more and more, because it's, like you said, it's not a cute concept, but it's not like a...
Girl crush.
It's like kind of in between. It's like something Western.
Right.
And in fact, it kind of reminded me of Folklore, of how Taylor Swift is going back to like country and folk a little bit. I mean, not 100%, but just kind of in the look. So it's like that's something that's pretty current that Twice did.
So hopefully they are successful with that.
So we talked in the past about AOA member Mina was talking about how Jimin in her group was bullying her for 10 years, and she's had all of these accusations and had been self-harming herself, which I hadn't really seen the pictures of or anything, but I guess just recently, and this all happened like August 6 to 8, that she had an Instagram post where she showed her arm with like
she's self-harming
super
again.
Bloody,
Yeah.
like she just cut it, and then there's like blood on the floor and blood running down her arm. So it's like she's talking about this whole situation again, about Jimin and Sohyun, I guess is another person in the group. I don't know.
She's another person in the group.
I don't know what she did now, but it wasn't really
But apparently she's
stated.
implicated as well now.
Yeah, and she's talking about the FNC Entertainment CEO was also named as, you know, some villain in this whole situation. Right. So it's like, okay, this has gotten like really serious now. I don't know what's going on, but...
I mean, if you will go back to our previous episodes, I've always acknowledged that from her subjective perspective, this has always been serious. Mm-hmm. She obviously feels very impacted by the things that happen. If you're self-harming, you obviously personally subjectively feel that, wow, I was wronged or I was victimized. I believe that she feels that way. I don't think she's making things up. Look at the things she's done. There's no reason to believe that she's made things up. But at the same time, she subjectively feels that way about the events that have occurred. I would caution people against assuming that means that her version of events is accurate. It's still her subjective viewpoint of what's happened.
Yeah.
Right? The other people have not, for legal reasons or whatever their reasons are, FNC, they have not said their side of the story, right? And I don't think it's smart to just assume that whoever is willing to go to extreme measures like this is their version of events is accurate because they're willing to, self-harm or things like that. It could be their versions of events are accurate and, Jimin and Sohyun they're just evil people and FNC too and all of that. Okay, that's possible. But just because you're willing to self-harm doesn't prove that. Mm-hmm. We have to be cautious about just saying, well, I just believe her because she showed me a picture of her wrists.
I'll be honest, I saw that picture, and there's some outlets that are blurring it, but others are kind of showing the whole thing. I'll be honest, when I saw the picture, I was like, oh my God, this is like so serious. And there has to be more going on that's not being said. And then maybe like the FNC CEO is like doing something super evil, and it's more than just like the bullying. That is
a gut emotional reaction, right? But it's not evidence-based. Mm-hmm. It's not. I don't want to accuse her of anything because we don't know the facts. We don't know a lot of information about this situation. But there have been situations, not speaking about this situations, but there have been situations in the world, in history, where somebody was just, mentally unstable and they interpreted events in a certain way that was not necessarily accurate. And they, maybe conducted self-harm. They did things. We believe that you subjectively felt that this was happening to you, but when people actually investigated and looked at the facts, it didn't line up. Maybe you were just, you had emotional issues or something was going on with you, right? Sometimes people they do need help and they interpret things in the wrong way. I'm not saying that's what's happening here, but we cannot jump to conclusions. We only have one side of the story. We only have some Instagram pictures. That's not evidence about what happened in her time at FNC. The only thing that would dredge up evidence about what happened at FNC is a proper investigation of FNC.
Yeah. So
we should not assume exactly they must have been doing this to her. They must have been put her through this. And I guess Sohyun is also an evil person. Hold on. We should not jump to that conclusion. Okay?
Yeah, so if you're a netizen, don't start going after all these people that she's talking about. We don't know.
It could be that they did, but we don't know that they did.
But she seems very bitter towards those two members and the FNC CEO. Like, what did they all do then? Like, we need to
she didn't specify, and they also didn't defend themselves and specify. And there hasn't been a proper investigation. It would be really irresponsible for us to just jump to conclusions, is what I'm saying. The only thing that I will say is that in her mind, she feels very strongly about what these parties did to her. She doesn't say what exactly, and also in their defense, they didn't say what to defend themselves. So we have very few facts in this situation, and based on so few facts, I'm not willing to villainize FNC or Jimin or Sohyun. It's really not fair and not proper in my opinion. I'm not willing to go that far. We don't have the facts, and we may never have the facts. So we'll just have our speculations.
Yeah, this being a health issue, it might just stay private from this point forward. One thing she brought up is this large trainee debt that she has, which apparently, like, when you're a trainee, everything you do costs money, and
that's common.
They keep track of it, and then maybe they didn't tell her the full amount, or they didn't break it down accurately or whatever. But that was one thing she mentioned in one of her Instagram posts. So maybe that's the reason for anger towards the FNC CEO. But I mean, I don't know if that person has decided all that, or if that's just what it was, or if.
And in a vacuum, I would totally agree with her. I don't think that debt should be put on the trainees. I don't think it should be.
I mean, the whole system is probably unfair, especially if your group doesn't make it that big. You're going to have a huge debt.
I think the system is at this point a bit unfair to the artists. I really do. They've had some reforms, like you can only have a 7-year contract to start out with. It used to be 10 or something, or I don't know, lifetime or something crazy like that. But now they have had reforms, but I do think they need to have a few more reforms about how fairly artists are treated. So those are all fair criticisms, but I don't think that's about FNC specifically. That's kind of across the board where people are asked. And in fairness, I don't want to sound xenophobic or something. There's some American companies that sort of do the same thing. Like they'll deduct, oh, well, your video costs this much or something like that, right?
Right, and like who knows what it costs? The artist has no idea.
Right. So, every company will try to sort of push the boundaries on this sort of thing, because of course they're looking out for their own bottom line, not for your bottom line. But I think that in general, in K-pop in Korea, it's a little too imbalanced, and it's unfair to the artists. They should get better treatment.
Thank you to our guest Morgan. You can find BTS Happy Hour on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, Podbean, Castbox, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. New episodes weekly. Please comment, leave a review, or rate wherever you're listening to the podcast. Follow BTS Happy Hour on Twitter and Facebook. Until next time, this has been the BTS Happy Hour. Thanks for listening, and remember, make every hour a happy one.